Hey, welcome to my channel. Here I am again. So you must be here because you want to learn to speak Spanish. Well, stick around and I got some good stuff for you. So, you want to learn to speak Spanish? Así es que quieres aprender a hablar español? Hey, that was slick. Did you see how I said the same thing in English and then in Spanish? How do I do that? You can learn to speak any language because all languages really are the same. You learn them exactly the same way. That's why everybody learns. That's why everybody learns to speak a language, at least one. So our head must be already really organized. Yeah, I want to say programmed, but I don't like programs. I don't know why. But our brain seems to be organized perfectly to learn to speak. So if we continue learning to speak the way the brain wants us to learn to speak, then we'll be all right. In today's video, I'll be talking about 5 hacks to speaking Spanish. I'm going to give you 5 really, really good ideas to work on if you want to progress quickly. Hack number 1. If you speak English, you already have a head start in a lot of words. Almost 40% of the words in English come from Latin. So most of the words you already know in English can be translated into Spanish right away. And I'll give you one example. All the words that end in T-I-O-N in English, for example, application, you got that shun, that sound of shun, application, nation, all of those, instead of saying shun at the end, we say sion. So nations would be nación, nation. Of course, the A in Spanish is pronounced A, so it's nación. Same thing with the English word application. It's aplicación, application. So the shun turns into sion. Hey, from a sh to a s. That's not bad, that's not hard. So you already have hundreds of words, thousands maybe already in your head that you can use automatically in Spanish. The hack number 2. You know, when I was a little boy, growing up in a border town, speaking one language and having to learn a second language, I remember when I went into Mexico, I never got that opportunity very often because I was a small boy. But I would hear students at school chanting almost. They had this practice sessions in the schools where everybody in the classroom would start almost like chanting. Let me give you an example. They would say something like ba, be, bi, bo, bu. And then they'd say ka, se, si, ko, ku. And then they'd say cha, che, chi, cho, chu. And then they'd say da, de, di, do, do. And they'd continue saying that. You know, I don't want to say the whole thing. I will make a video on that. It'd be good to practice. But even though in Mexico everybody spoke Spanish, they still made all the students in every classroom, in every grade, practice that I call a chant almost. It was part of their education. And I'm pretty sure they did that in order to kind of limit the kind of sounds that can be introduced into the Spanish language, so there won't be just too many sounds that you have to learn in order to produce the Spanish language, as opposed to English. Now, English has English from Ireland, English from Holland, English from India, English from Australia, English from South Africa. So there are all different sounds that are allowed to be in that language. But in Spanish, once you learn the sounds, you don't have to worry about that. Sounds are going to change on you, and somebody's going to speak differently, because everybody has to speak the same, because they're limited to the amount of sounds that the language is supposed to have. And they reinforce this in schools. So there you go, Bob. What they're doing is they're putting the letter B next to the letter A, which is a vowel. So they say ba, and then they put the letter E next to the letter B, and that's be, and so on. So the A, the E, the I, the O, and the U. There's only 5 of them, so that makes it really easy. That's 50% of the language, the vowels. Yeah, but if you start practicing ba, be, bi, bo, boo, that's with the B, and then you put the C in there. It's ka, and then se. The hard K sound turns into a soft S sound when it's next to an E or an I. So it's ka, se, si, ko, ku. And then there's a CH letter. It's 2 letters, but they call it 1 letter, so you include it, it's 1 letter. Because it's 1 sound, actually. Well, it's 2 sounds, but let's not even go into that. But it's cha, che, chi, cho, chu. The reason I say it's 2 sounds is because there's a TCH sound in there. There's a ch, ch, ch. Cha, che, chi, cho, chu, that's the 5 vowels. And so on and so forth. With the D, da, de, di, do, do. With the F, fa, fe, fi, fo, fu, and so on and so forth. You practice that every day, and your brain is receiving the correct sounds that it's supposed to be receiving when it's listening to somebody else talk to you, so you can recognize what they're trying to say. You can recognize the utterances that are being spoken to you, because everybody speaks in utterances, right? I'll get into that in a minute. But in fact, in the next, that's number 3. So the ba, be, bi, bo, boo thing is really good to practice. Number 3, the third hack would be learn to speak in utterances. That's really super important, because instead of learning words, instead of learning how to pronounce words, which is, it's okay, you can do it, but, you're kind of wasting your time just learning to memorize words and then trying to speak using 1 word at a time. Well, you find out that nobody speaks 1 word at a time. I mean, it's just not tolerable, not acceptable. People speak in a string of words tied together that are familiar to the guy who's listening. Those string of sounds are familiar enough that they can know exactly what you're trying to say. And that's the skill that you want to learn to do. So try to learn utterances. By utterances, I mean words together. How do people say 2 words together? So you can start with, like in English, it would be thank you. How do you say thank you? And you want to start putting together into an utterance. An utterance is a continuous chain of sounds that are familiar, not only to the speaker, but to the listener. And that's how the listener understands what you're trying to say. Now, if you start bringing sounds from another language into Spanish, say English, you start pronouncing stuff in Spanish like you would in English, well, they're not familiar with those sounds, so they wouldn't be able to understand you, right? So that hack number 3 would be learn to speak in utterances. Start with 2 words together, and then put 3 words together, and then 4. That's really hard, because you get up to 4 and 5, and trying to work your way up to 7 words. If you can speak any language in 7 words or more, you're really on your way. I mean, you can carry on a conversation. I'm speaking to you right now in utterances, right? You understand that because I'm speaking. So whenever anybody speaks in any language, anywhere in the whole world, they're speaking in utterances. They've learned to speak in utterances. So you should too if you want to learn how to speak. Otherwise, you'll just be speaking one word at a time. And that's not only boring, but you sound odd. You sound, when you speak one word at a time in any language, you sound angry almost, weird, and people don't really want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to you. Okay, anyway, okay. But how, hack number 4. Now, it's really important to, when you're learning to speak a language, any language, in this case, we're talking about Spanish, but in order to learn to speak it, you got to speak it. Well, how do you speak it if you don't have enough familiarity? You know, they're coming out in a certain order and a certain pattern, and they are familiar. Those sounds that are coming out as you're speaking that language have to be the correct sounds because those are the ones that are familiar to the people that speak that language. In this case, it's Spanish. So start learning to speak in utterances. Forget about speaking one word at a time and think more about putting them together. How do they sound? Do they sound the same? What happens when you link them together? Well, sometimes you lose the sound, sometimes you substitute a different sound. I'm going to go home, for example. Well, you can say I'm gonna go. So you say gonna instead of going to. There's no going to. I'm gonna go home. That's the way people speak. Nobody says, I am going to go home. Nobody speaks that way. It was hack number 4, which is learn by listening to a TV channel in Spanish. They have lots of what they call soap operas where people just speak. And some of them are kind of interesting, you know, once you start following the plots. They're a lot of drama, melodrama, and all that stuff. So TV in Spanish, especially in the afternoons, are really, really great. And then hack number 5, you want to get better at speaking Spanish? Do it 15 minutes a day. That's all your brain needs. 15 minutes of good speaking practice, whatever it is you want to learn how to say, you know. For example, you want to learn to say, what's your name? ¿Cómo te llamas? Right? Whoa, that went really fast, didn't it? Huh? ¿Cómo te llamas? Well, that's the skill that I'll be trying to build with you guys in the future. I don't say ¿Cómo te llamas? That's the 3 words, como, and then te, and then llamas. Those are the 3 words that are used in ¿Cómo te llamas? But when I say it, it seems like I'm saying it really fast. Well, I'm not saying it really fast. What the matter is that you're listening really slow. You're listening really slow. But that's okay because you know how to listen. And listening is very important because you have to learn to repeat what you're listening to so that you can start saying the correct sounds and so on and so forth. So 15 minutes a day, that's hack number 5, right? Okay, you got all that. And I'll be back next week with another great video on learning to speak a new language. In this case, it's Spanish. I'm into teaching Spanish right now, and I'm going to get into some English later on, and then I'll get some other languages, and maybe we'll do some really good stuff. And maybe in the end, we can end up working with some new projects, maybe projects that have never been thought of before or have not been produced correctly, or et cetera, et cetera. You know, I'm interested in, of course, teaching people to speak new languages. But there's a lot of languages in the world. There's, you know, maybe about 7,000, around 7,000 different languages, you know. the only language we speak here in the United States is English. That's one language, 1 out of 7,000. Come on. We should at least know 2 or 3. Anyway, English or Spanish or German or something. But how about the other types of language? How about Asian language? Shouldn't we be trying to at least figure out how to learn to speak those Asian languages? How about African languages? Hey, how about some indigenous languages? We could learn how to speak those too. My favorite, though, is languages in the future. You know, maybe we can invent our own language in the future, not for anything else, but for self-defense. You know, because remember, language is for one purpose and one purpose only. Language is to include and to exclude. That's why we have different languages. Otherwise, we'd all be talking the same language. Wouldn't that be sound like that's what we should be doing? You know, everybody in the whole world should be speaking in one language, and you know, we all. But that's not the way it works. And heaven forbid, if it ever works that way, we'll be in deep trouble. We have different languages because we have to. Sometimes we have to include some people. We include those people who happen to speak that particular language. So we include them in the culture and all the emotions of society and so on and so forth. So it's inclusive. Languages are to be inclusive, but at the same time they are exclusive because everybody outside that language has no opportunity to engage in the language that's being spoken by that population. So that's why we have different types of language. So we should really start thinking about learning a lot of new languages, and it's not that hard, you guys. It really isn't. You just learn how you learn to speak your first language. Yeah, your brain's already organized to do that. Why not do it that way? Well, I try to learn some new method, or who cares, man? We've had 200,000 years of speaking all these different languages, so our brain is pretty organized. Don't worry about that. And you feed your brain the correct information, and your brain will be healthier. That means you'll learn quicker, you'll learn faster, and there'll be no effort in your part. I mean, sometimes you don't even have to focus. There is no focus. The brain does it automatically. That is, what I'm talking about is learning to speak. The brain does it automatically. You feed it. Okay, guys, I talk too much. But that's my job. All the languages in the world, maybe later even some Asian languages and some future languages. That's what I mean. Or maybe even go crazy and start trying to teach animals how to talk. But most animals don't have lips. As you can see, I use my lips a lot. So do all of us when we're talking. We use our lips, and then we use a little bone back here. And most animals don't have. All animals, I guess, don't have. Anyway, see you guys next time.